got rid of all my RF stuff, and yeah, it was doing a really nice job. But didn't get any comeback. I haul it and haul it.
A little bit of a 40 meter AM late night on the FT101. Welcome back to the radio room. We're taking a look at the FT101 that had some problems. I think we've gotten through most of them.
Oh man, but I don't know. We'll just play it by ear, and whatever happens, I guess.
Sounding pretty good tonight.
Camping there. Sorry to hear about the E115. That's ridiculous. Yeah, man. my brother and his wife. November 0 Alpha Delta.
SU Alpha Delta 596. 597. You hear that?
Contest going on this evening, it sounds
Always
like.
at the station.
Oscar Radio 1 X-ray, CQ contact. Oscar Radio 1 X-ray, CQ contact. Oscar Radio 1 X-ray, CQ contact. Whiskey Bravo 2, Juliet Oscar Echo 5927.
10:40 local time here. 20 meters still hopping. Got a contest going. It's amazing how the bands open up when there's a contest, even when you think they're dead.
And we are working in companion, and I shall give the microphone to Jack, and this calls from his Papa Charlie 5 Delta X-ray. Jack, go ahead. Okay, Dan, hello Dan, this is Jack, PC5DX. Your signal report is 59 in Rotterdam, Netherlands, at my side, and nice to make your acquaintance. Go ahead Dan. Okay, Jack, pleasure to meet you. You're coming in here a 5 and 6, a 5 and 6. I'm running a long wire.
Well, I think the FT101 with some problems is now the FT101 with not so many problems. Still got some age on it, and it's still got some wear, obviously. It looks like it's working. There's probably a lot more that could be done to this radio, but it's working right now, and it seems like it's working pretty good. Things are looking pretty good. But one thing I do want to show you this evening is, in just a moment I'll put a dummy load on this thing, and let's take a look at 10 meters. Before we were getting about 2 watts out of 10 meters on full carrier in tune. So let's see where we're at now. I'm going to get a dummy load on this thing, throw a microphone on it, and let's see what it does now. Alright, we're back. Got the dummy load hooked up. Got a microphone hooked up to it as well. And I've already done the tuning. I've got the carrier turned all the way down right now. We are sitting in tune down here, which is just to show the output here. So if you take a look at the needle here, before I could be in this setting, which is the 20 watt max setting, and we would just barely see some needle deflection on there. Full bore, trying everything we could to get anything out, was where we were basically sitting before. Now I'm just going to go ahead and pop this thing up to the 200 watt zone, and let's key it up and start advancing that carrier over, and seeing where it's maxing out at. So here we go. Alright, 10 watts, 20 watts, maybe 25. Well, there's 30, 40, 50, heading towards 100, and just over 100 watts on full carrier. So we've gone from, we got 50 times the power out. This is on sitting on 28.4 right now, right in the middle of the general portion, voice portion of the 10 meter band. So we're definitely putting out some power there. Let's see here. Go ahead and go over to upper sideband here. And let's go with about a 6 on the mic gain. See what she does with a little bit of voice going through. Audio test 1 2 3 4 5. Yep, we're putting over just a little over 100 watts there. Might be a little bit hot on the mic gain, but you can definitely see we got some. We definitely got some movement on the needle now and some output power. So that's a marked improvement on 10 meters. Didn't really find anything wrong in it. Just basically went through the whole transmit and receive front end alignment. And as soon as I started it, with anybody who's anywhat familiar with FT101s, if you've looked at the service manual, you start at 10 meters when you do the receive, transmit receive alignment. And as soon as I went in there and got everything set up pretty much where it was a little hard to, of course, set the loading and everything, the plate, when you barely get any needle output. We're barely getting it above idle as far as bias current. But as soon as I started doing a little bit of the tweaking in there to get the alignment going for the transmit, immediately I started getting power as I was tweaking it back and forth, trying to get it just right. I started out on the 20 watt scale because I wasn't really expecting much out of it, to tell you the truth. As far down as it was, I kind of figured it had to be something else wrong. But very quickly went above the 20 watts, went into the 100 watt scale, and we were very quickly over 100 watts. Even went back and did another tune-up on the output with the plate and the loading and the pre-select, just to make sure it wasn't, then started the alignment back over again with those in a little bit better spot. And it even got better. I mean, when I was getting it up to 50 really easily, maybe 60 watts. Did that, started the alignment back over again, just because I don't think I had things set quite right over here. Of course, the pre-select, when you're doing the alignment, they tell you where to put it. And one reason for that is so that you can calibrate the pre-select position to align with the receive. So once you set it at a certain point in the first step, you don't move it. You leave it there so that when you move to the next portion of the alignment, which is the receive, you can peak the receive on the exact same frequency at the exact same pre-select. That way your transmit and your receive pre-select should line up very, very closely. Went through the whole thing, and some of the bands were a little off, some took a little bit more adjustment, but a lot of them weren't too bad. But 10 meters, we went from 2 watts output maximum carrier to over 100, so I'm very pleased with that. This radio now has pretty much 100 watt output on all the bands. I think the lowest one actually might be about 80 meters. I'm not really sure what was going on with that, but it was putting out probably around, I want to say it's probably anywhere between 80 to 95 watts. It was just a little bit below the 100 on my power meter. So I'm very happy with that. I'm going to go over a couple of things that I noticed when I was doing the alignment that might help some folks out. when I first started the alignment, I kind of read through it. Didn't really think much of it. You know, heck, I'll grab some alignment tools I got and we'll get after it. Well, when you get to the 80 meter alignment, you have to adjust two slugs. Basically, it's a transformer, two transformers, and there's another band that includes a variable inductor. And it said in the manual, you know, that there's a hex key adjustment that has had a hex adjustment in there. So I just need an adjustment tool with a hex, which isn't a problem. And you definitely want to use one that's non-metallic. Anytime you're doing anything with transformers, adjustable transformers, they usually have like a powdered ferrite core in there. For one, it can be brittle, so you have to be careful with it. And two, if you put anything metal into that transformer can, you can't adjust it accurately because your metallic Allen wrench or whatever you happen to be using will affect it as well. It's ferrous. So there's no way to really do that. I guess you could do a little tweak, back off and see what it is, but you can't really, especially if you're trying to peak something on a power meter. You can't see that nice swing because you unkey, you make an adjustment. Okay, yeah, it went up. Well, you might have went past the up. There might have been a higher one, so you want to peak it. So you really want to be able to adjust it and watch it come up, come to peak, and then just start dipping back down, and then you bring it back and rock it back and forth till you find that nice sweet spot. Well, I thought I was going to be just fine. I went over and grabbed my alignment tools. I got some plastic ones inside in the kit, and I thought, well, this will work. That's a hex key. It's not the right size. It's actually too big. The hex in the T104, T105, and T106 transformers are a 5/64 hex wrench. I don't have a 5/64 hex wrench that's plastic. I got a metal one. So I was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? Because I really don't want to wait a week to get something from Amazon or order something. And it's got to be a non-metallic one, which I believe is harder to find than you'd think. So I worked a little bit more on the radio, cleaning some stuff up, whatnot, and decided, you know what, I'm going to bed. I'm going to figure this out. My best option, I thought, was, well, I just build something. That seems to be the theme here in the radio room here lately. If you don't have it or your equipment won't quite do it, build something. Make it work. Take what you got and go forward. So I thought about it overnight, I guess, because I went to sleep figuring I was going to have to order something, and woke up this morning and had an idea. Well, a hex wrench goes into any sort of hex key, which, if anybody's ever adjusted a whip on an antenna, a lot of them have a set screw in them, and they're normally an Allen wrench. And I was like, well, what's the chances? Maybe I have a whip antenna around here somewhere that has a 5/64 set screw in it. So I went through around, digging through the old junk box, so to speak, and found this antenna. Sorry if we're really up close. I'm getting lazy on my camera stuff today. I just figured out I'd just do it through this camera. Well, that set screw right there has a 5/64 hex key on it. Because the thought I had was I don't think I can shave something down, a rod or a piece of plastic or something like that. I really don't think I'm going to be able to take an X-Acto knife, pocket knife, file, sander, whatever, and make a perfect 5/64 hex. And of course, being that small, you might want to get it right. But I thought, you know, if I could have something plastic, and I took that hex key, or that set screw, that matches the size of the Allen wrench that I need, well, couldn't I use that as a mold? So that's what I did. This is actually an old straw, I believe, from a compressed air, maybe? Not really sure. But it's fairly hard plastic. And it looked like it was about the right size. Maybe just a shade bigger, which I figured was alright. So I took this, put it in some alligator clips in my helping hands, grabbed my old hot air rework station, cranked that puppy up to just shy of the gates of hell, and started heating this puppy up. Probably got it up to, well, I had the rework station set at, I think it was 500 degrees, 450, 500 degrees. So I figured I'm not going to get that quite that hot. And as soon as I got it good and hot, stuffed the end of the straw right down in it, as straight as I could get it. And I didn't get it quite right, but I stuck it down in there, pushed as hard as I could, and then just let it sit till it cooled off. Worked that puppy out of there. I don't know if y'all can see this quite well, but that is a nice 5/64 fairly hard plastic hex on the end of that. And it actually closed it in, and it's actually solid on the end now. And it's got fairly decent depth, enough to engage securely into a slug. So there's my tool. And yeah, I didn't get it quite straight. You can see it, that was a little crooked once I finally got it in there. But this definitely came in handy. Of course, had to get the wax out of those tuning slugs. And what turned out to work fairly well was a Q-tip. I had to take most of the cotton off the Q-tip. Soaked it in some isopropyl alcohol and just kept working back and forth. Take a flashlight, a little small screwdriver, and just carefully work some of that out of there. And then just kind of kept soaking it a little bit with the alcohol until I could get this in here and just barely working back and forth. It started breaking free. Got that wax broke free inside there. Blew out some of the waxy powder that kind of came loose. And they were adjustable. So I was back on with doing the alignment. So that's definitely something I'm glad I didn't have to sit and wait for something to come in from ordering it or something. And I'm going to hold on to this. If I do other 101s, alignments, I'm going to need it. And you never know, it might come in handy. So it's going to go in with my adjustment tools, swizzle sticks, whatever you want to call them. And it'll just be sitting there waiting for the next time I need it. But if you're making a hex, maybe set screws make good forms. Heat some plastic up, a straw off of, heck, a can of WD-40 might even work. As long as it's pretty close to the right size. Put it in there, take the heat off of it, just let it sit there until it cools. And you should probably end up with a pretty good little swizzle stick. Sometimes you just gotta go to bed, let your subconscious figure the problem out for you. So we got all that done, and it's working pretty good. Had a conversation with another station across town. Called him up on the radio and said, "Hey, meet me over on 10 meters. I want to see if this radio's talking as good as it looks like on the meter." And it turns out it was talking just fine. Receive and transmit. The receive actually came up pretty good in a lot of bands, so it's pretty sensitive. From the previous videos, I had built the attenuator box, the tap, whatever you want to call it, for testing these, and didn't have any problem. There was a few bands I actually had to come up from a microvolt to even be able to hear it when I was modulating, putting a signal into the radio. Little adjustment, turned it right back down, and pretty much every band I had my tiny SA going as low as it would go, negative 76 dB, plus the 40 dB attenuator, so everything was peaked at basically negative 116 dBm, and still had good tone. Didn't really have to really strain to hear it or anything. So I'm thinking this is probably, you could probably get down to 126 dB, 120, somewhere in there, I think, and you'd still be able to detect a signal, which is pretty good for a receiver. When you're doing 0101, you have to go between transmit and receive alignments. So the transmit, you basically run it into a dummy load. You could use the power output meter here, but it's not really as accurate. I was using this in alignment. You're going into a dummy load and basically peaking for maximum output power while you're keeping your IC below 100. Just because you're doing a long time and you're tuning things, you don't want to stress the tubes too much. So, you might only be putting out 10 or 15 watts, but you're peaking it. Afterwards, I would go to full carrier for a moment and see what it came up to. Maybe do a quick little tune right there just to peak it a little bit more, but most of it was done with less than 100 milliamps. And then when you go to receive, of course, you have to put a signal on a specific frequency, modulated with 1000 hertz tone, preferably less than a microvolt into it. So unless you're using a switch to go between your generator and your dummy load and meter, you're plugging and unplugging. Well, while I was doing the 160 meter band, which is the last steps of the alignment, I had to step away from the radio for a few minutes, and I had just finished the 40 meter alignment. Normally you step down through the frequencies, except you go so you go 10, 15, 20, and then you skip 40, do 80, then you come back to 40, do the transmit and receive there, then you go to 160. I don't know why. Probably has something to do with the way the bands work together on some of the adjustments, particularly maybe those slugs. Maybe they need to be done because they influence 40 as well. I hadn't really looked into it that close. So I had left this hooked up to the radio from the 40 meter alignment, had to step away from it for a few minutes, and then come back. Well, I came in, sat down, started tuning this radio up on 160 meters. Had never done 160 meters on this radio. In any of the tests I've done, I had never tested 160 meters. Well, I'm going through the tune-up. Okay, I got good, idle bias. Doing the tune-up, trying to get things to tune, and it's kind of fighting me a little bit. But it's tuning. But I was never getting anything out on my meter here. And I'm all like, well, that's kind of odd. I can't see why my meter wouldn't want to do 1.9 megahertz. It did 3.5, but, maybe it just doesn't like that. So I peaked this thing out on the tuning. I hadn't made any adjustments yet. On the tuning, to maximum power. And it just didn't set right. I'm like, why is my meter not working? Well, then I glanced at the back of the radio and noticed the connector on it was not the right connector. Oh, it still had a 50 ohm termination on it. 50 ohm termination in this, right by the tap. So I promptly switched things over to go to this one and got this out of here. I had the tiny SA hooked up to this as well, and was like, oh no, I've screwed something up. I either blew up my tiny SA, totally cooked this thing. I hope I didn't damage the radio. So I hooked this up and finish out my tune, which I pretty much had dead on. And it had 100 watts out. I hadn't done the alignment yet, but it had 100 watts out, and I was putting 100 watts into this. So definitely make sure, if you're having to flop back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you keep track if you happen to walk out of the room. Didn't do a lot of damage to this. The two parallel resistors that form the 50 ohms on the right before the tap, well, they've looked better. Little charcoal, little black. In fact, it was probably 5 minutes after I had noticed this discrepancy in the last time I had transmitted into it, but things didn't quite smell right. This felt a little warm, so let me pop the top off and I'll check it. As soon as I popped the top off, of course, smoke started billowing out of it that was trapped in there. And of course, the two barbecued 100 ohm 2-watt resistors. But everything else was fine. Probably because between the center of this and the shield, the antenna circuit that the radio was seeing was 50 ohms. The only thing that's between those two is, of course, the 50 ohms made up of the two 100 ohm parallel resistors in that capacitor. So that was pretty much the antenna circuit. But I'm here to tell you, these actually did amazingly well. For basically having 100 watts going through them. These are 2-watt resistors. 2-watt resistors don't make good 100 watt dummy loads. I'm just telling you, they gave up a good fight, put up an excellent fight. In fact, these still ohm out within spec. As barbecued as they still are dead on, like 99.9 ohms each, and together they are like 50.0. So yeah, they hang in there. And even though they tested right, I decided I just put new ones in here and continued on with the alignment. But this thing actually worked great. Definitely worked good for a attenuator. Everything that was going on as far as signals into the radio matched exactly what I thought they would, as far as how they reacted with or without it, because I did do tests, S9 tests at -73, both with this in line. So I was running the Tiny SA at -33 dB, which would make roughly -73, and I also did it straight out of the Tiny SA into the back of the radio, especially when I calibrated the S meter. And through this at -33 dBm on the Tiny SA and just -73 set on the Tiny SA straight into the radio, came out to the exact same S meter reading. So that's pretty close. It's probably not dead on, but I'm calling it a win. So, I think we're pretty much going to wrap this radio up. Like I said, it's maybe still got a few quirks in it, mostly because of its age, but it hears good. All the reports I've had on air from one or two local stations, everybody says it sounds good. It's stable. It doesn't seem like it wants to really wander around any. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty good. There could be some things that pop up once the owner gets it back. If he starts operating or something. A little bit of time might tell. This radio did sit for a little while. I think about 13 years is what the owner told me. So there could be a few things that kind of pop up and make themselves known. But I've operated it a little bit. Of course, cleaned all the controls, cleaned RL1, pulled it out, cleaned it, pulled out the transmit receive relay and cleaned it, sprayed all the switches, all the band wafers in there, and it's pretty good. No scratchy on the volume, which is a good thing. All the switches are fairly clean. Band switch has a little bit of snap coming between the no band position and back to one or the other, but I'd kind of expect that because it's basically not doing much right there. You know, there's a little bit of scratch going up to WWV, and I think that's just because that one's not used as much. So it got clean, but maybe it's still got a little bit of oxidation on there that might kind of work out with some working of the switch. But pretty much 100 watts out for the radio. Sounds good. Let me get the dummy load off of it real quick, and I'll hook the antenna back up to it, and we will tune around a little bit on it just for receive. If I want to go to transmit, I'll have to use the other radio or something to tune it. I'd rather, really, if you're going to tune a radio like this, it's, in my opinion, it's best to have a you either got to know your antenna is good and resonant. I wouldn't try to do it on my system because I have an automatic tuner in between my radio and whatever radio I'm using and my antenna system, which is not a resonant antenna for all the bands. I'm sure it's resonant somewhere. It's more of a multi-band, not really resonant in any one specific spot, maybe somewhere around 80 meters. But you don't want to tune into something that's going to be non-resonant. So in that case, I would suggest maybe have a dummy load on a switch. You can switch to the dummy load, tune your radio up, then you can put a little low carrier in and go to your automatic antenna tuner, let it tune that. Then you might tweak it a little bit while you have the antenna hooked up, but I'm not going to go through all of that this evening. So let's see here. I think 10's probably mostly dead this late at night. Yeah, I got some birdies in there, but that's about it. Let's just for giggles here. Apparently CV's dead too. Maybe the antenna's not tuned right now, but maybe something on 15. Okay, the antenna's not tuned right there. But it sounds like there is a European station in there. It sounds like it's probably from England. Okay. Let's go to 20.
over there? Delta Lima 0, Sugar Horses Papa, you find signs down line, okay?
Pretty good foreign stations coming in.
Another power station.
Lots of foreign stations in that contest. Well, let's try 40 meters. At the beginning of the video actually had some AM. Sounds like they either gone or the band's closing. It's a little bit of 40 meters. Let's try 80.
Give me a call, so I'll put one on you back for a minute.
News and just texting some family members mainly tonight after trivia. How are you guys? We're just fine. Got a good group in here. Got
Freewheelers net 3916. Friendliest net on 75 meters.
We're Fort Smith, Arkansas. In here, Stephen was in here in Edmond, but I think he just checked out.
Just still riding along out there in Colorado Springs, Steve.
Who's that, Buzz?
Number 2 Papa Charlie, he's still riding along in the background.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Tim. Hey, how's it going? Good, good. How are you? I am doing just fine. The warm up here is getting me ready to be in Texas next week, over. Yeah, I heard you talking about that. Well, I hope you have a good trip. It's hot down here, but that's what you get in the summertime. Yep, yep. You know, I've actually enjoyed it because, like you say, that's the summertime. My brother and sister-in-law came down this evening, and we went out to dinner, and we went to Dairy Queen, sat outside, just enjoyed the warmth, over. Well, good deal. How long are you going to be out? Well, I got to close and help my son move, get his apartment cleaned up, turn back in, maybe between 7 days and 2 weeks. You had quite a summer, haven't you? Roger.
Alright, now I don't know if we're going to hear anything on 160, but what the heck, let's try it. Mostly because of my antenna system. no 160.
I drilled him for
Well, good deal. Good to hear you, man. I'm just kind of reading some stuff online. I'll be listening, but I'll let somebody else talk. KE5TGY.
All right, so there you go. We've seen that it definitely works on 10 meters now. Working pretty good, it looks like. Like I said, I did make a contact with it earlier today and verified that. So I think we're pretty good shape. This radio is basically gone from being deaf and pretty much mute on at least 10 meters to now working on all bands. We have good receive. Everything's cleaned up. There's a little bit of scratchy on some controls, but everything else is pretty much, mostly just on the band switch.
I don't remember his call sign anymore.
Okay, so I got
There's another guy.
I got the clarifier on, got it set on 0, which pretty much sounds exactly the same as off. So just wanted to note I checked that, but I did not do any adjustment on the clarifier alignment. Mostly because I'm at 0 and it doesn't sound different. If it doesn't sound different, there's no sense in doing a clarifier alignment. But as you can see, the clarifier, I'm turning the clarifier knob, by the way. Does work. That's back to 0. Now it's off. No change. So that's good alignment right there. Alrighty. Like I said, just wanted to bring this in here. I think we can now call this the FT101 without some problems. Without as many problems. There's still a few things, obviously, that in the long run maybe they need to be fixed, but the radio works as a radio now, and I think it's fairly reliable. You could go through on a radio this age and really start going in there and changing everything in it, electrolytic capacitors, really go through and check resistor tolerances. And I'm sure there's some that are off a little bit. That's one reason why it probably needed an alignment. Everything in there that I've seen doesn't really look like it's ever really had an alignment in it. Just from the fact that it still had the white markers on all the adjustments in there, which I believe are from the factory. And the wax that came out of those slugs, that were holding those slugs, looked old enough to be original. So I think... things drift a little bit, things change a little bit, but it seems solid. It seems like it's not drifting any. Staying on frequency, I think we're in good shape. So, already got it back in its case, wiped it down good. It just kind of got the loose plastic front on it. If the owner wants to take that, he can take that off of there. I kind of asked him about it, and he was like, yeah, maybe, hey, man. It didn't really matter. He's more worried about the thing working. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it on there, because once it's off, it's off. If for some reason he wants it left on there, I'd rather just leave it on there. And if he says, no, go ahead and take it off, fine. The only thing I'm reluctant about is I haven't pulled any of these knobs off. And I don't know the last time they were off. So they might come off real easily. They might not. So I was really wanting to not have to remove the knobs if I don't have to. I could probably get, I mean, the plastic's loose enough, I could probably get it pulled away and cut a slot around each one and still get them out of there. And just maybe have to take this this bezel off the front. Probably have to take this off because I believe, yeah, that probably goes in there pretty far underneath there, but it could be done. But I'll leave that up to the owner. This is actually a really neat radio.
Facebook group here in Fort Smith.
There are I would venture to say that this is on receive. This radio would rival some of the newer, all solid state radios. There's probably some DSP and stuff that would probably clean things up better, but as far as being able to just sit down and listen to stuff, I think this one, even though it's probably early to mid 70s, probably hold its own against a lot of modern radios on receive. So the FT101, I mean, there's still a lot of them around, and I think there's a lot of them still around for a reason. They're fairly easy to work on. People can work on them, and they kind of got a following. So it's fun to get to kind of go through this one and figure it out. Even when single sideband not working turns out to not be the radio at all, but the equipment I was trying to use to make it work. So it was fun going through this one. We'll be working at some other FT101s. We do have the Double E that came in a couple weeks ago that has no transmit output whatsoever. I'm going to take a look at that, see if I can figure out what's going on there. It could be some bad tubes. I think there might be a little bit more going on than just that. Just some initial looking at it that I've done. But the FT101 with some problems, but not so many no more.
From 16 years old up to
Thanks for stopping by.
60 years old.
We'll catch you later.
I drank and drove everywhere I